Afternoon, I'm Sven Masterson, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about how to keep your Cold War marriage from going full-blown nuclear annihilation. Now, what do I mean by Cold War marriage? If you do Google searches for stages of marriage, you'll find all kinds of explanations for the stages of most marriage relationships. The stage I'm talking about is commonly called the power struggle stage, or the third stage of marriage. And in this stage of marriage, you have both partners just really beginning to wonder, did I marry the right person? Am I in the relationship with the right person? And they're starting to struggle with the idea, is this marriage salvageable? Now, when you're in your 40s or higher, this becomes kind of really difficult, because usually both the man and the woman in the marriage are feeling this pressure of, hey, you know what, I've got to hurry up and figure out if this marriage can work, because I'm not sure there's enough time to end the marriage, deal with the fallout, take the time to heal, get in another relationship, and experience the deep emotional connection, passionate, intimate romance that I want to experience before I die. And so people in their 40s are feeling this existential crisis of I'm not sure there's time to experience this life that I want to experience before I die. They don't feel like they've quite found what they had hoped to find in marriage, and they realize that they've got to make a decision soon. And so there's a tremendous amount of pressure that the man and the woman involved in this marriage feels during this time. And meanwhile, they're feeling a tremendous amount of emotional pain. And that is, in my opinion, really the source of this conflict in marriage. I like to call it, instead of the power struggle stage, actually the mutual victimization stage. Now, that might rub some people really wrong, and I'm sorry if that does, but at the same time, this is a pretty evidential pattern when dealing with men and couples all around the world that I see over and over and over and over again. And what it looks like generally is you have two people in the relationship who are feeling like victims. And why I say they're feeling like victims is they feel a tremendous amount of emotional pain, and they're convinced that it is caused by their partner. And so they have a lot of contempt starts to build up. And so sometimes I call this the mutual contempt phase, because each partner is feeling this emotional pain, and they're feeling that the cause of it is their partner's failure to meet a need, a want, or a desire, or perhaps things their partner does is causing them irritation, is causing them to be triggered. And people get stuck in these stories in their head that I'm in pain because of you, it's your fault, and if you would just do differently, I could be happy. And see, that's where the real rub is here. This is the power struggle stage. I'm unhappy, it's your fault, and I can't be happy until you change what is triggering my unhappiness. And this is where I meet most of my clients, most of the men I work with, almost all the men that come into my community. It's because they're stuck in this stage. And because I work with men, I meet men that are deeply disappointed. Intimacy a lot of times has dried up or feels like pity sex. They're not happy. They're frustrated. The woman in their life has often said, I need space. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. I'm unhappy. I need to find myself, and a whole host of other things. And the reason for that is because the man, the woman, or usually both, are feeling this weight of their emotional pain and believing that the relationship with the other person is the cause. So how do you get out of this stage of marriage? Well, anytime you are a victim, there's a villain involved. So first thing to do is to understand, if you're a victim and you see the other person as a villain, you're in gridlock emotionally. You're actually creating a status in your relationship of relational gridlock, where each of you sees the other as a villain. Well, we all know that it's not very endearing to be thought of as a villain. So men, when you think about your wife as a villain, I want you to see, why on earth would she want to be intimate with you? Women generally are not attracted to men who think they're broken, busted, mean, and villainous, right? So we have to let this narrative go, not so we can be intimate, but because when you're in gridlock, someone must exit the gridlock first. Now, there's two different ways to do this. One of them is highly effective, and one of them is ineffective. The first way, half of the marriage is on planet Earth resolve this conflict is by basically dissolving the marriage. But I want you to see what's happening with my fingers here. Nobody is actually moving out of a sense of victimization. They're just moving out of the marriage. But if you could see my hands off camera, you could see they're basically still seeing one another as the villain and the other person as the root cause of both their emotional pain and the reason the relationship failed. And this is why even when people get divorced and end their marriage, they still tend to hold on to this resentment, contempt, animosity, bitterness, etc. It doesn't really leave. It doesn't really solve this problem. It just separates them from legally from the relationship. But a lot of these people have kids. They still need to co-parent. They still need to do things sometimes for the next 10, 20 years. They're going to show up at school events and weddings and graduations and all this. And really, they're no better, right? So they can't bear to see each other. They feel all that emotional pain again. They feel victimized. And I don't think, in most cases, it really solves anything. So what's a better way? How do you actually escape this stage of marriage and end the Cold War, where you're basically each kind of have your finger on the button, just ready to annihilate each other? How do you exit that in a way that is effective? Well, and the men I work with, I counsel every one of them that they must put the victim role down. See, anytime we dry up the victim role, it means there's no villain anymore. And so now a man is on a new path. He has let go of the narrative that his wife is responsible for his emotional pain. He's let go of the concept that she is villainizing him, because he doesn't see himself as a victim anymore of her. He sees himself as the hero that will take him out of the pain he has towards a new destination on the horizon that has nothing to do with how cooperative she is to that process. He doesn't need to wait for her to change. He doesn't need to wait for her to start doing something or stop doing something. This man takes 100% ownership of himself and his life and what happens next. When a man does that, he has taken away the gridlock. There is no more gridlock. However, sometimes and oftentimes, there still is a partner who's still feeling pain, who's still feeling victimized and still sees him as a villain. And this can be a tremendously difficult time for a man, because he's like, hey, what's up? I put down the villainization story. I don't see her as a villain anymore. Why does she still see me as one? Well, it's pretty plain and simple. She hasn't learned to trust that you're not going to come back into this particular phase. And so for a while, usually about 6 months in the average marriage I work with, a woman will still hold on to the pain, the anguish, her hurt, her frustration, and her victimization story. And one of the things I help men with is to just accept that that's how it is, that it's okay, and that he's not in any danger because she's still struggling. And this teaches a man to be emotionally safe, to learn to be okay even when people are not okay feeling toward him, and that he's just fine, and that he can just accept that she's feeling pain, and he can be present and available and learn to be with her in that pain without taking it personally, without being defensive, without being argumentative, and without just falling to pieces. And when a man learns to reliably and consistently do that, it tends to give his partner the opportunity to take her hand off the trigger, kind of dry up the villainization story, dry up the victimization story, and then they move together into the next stage, the fourth stage of mutual acceptance, which is where all the good stuff happens in marriage. Now, most modern marriage therapy, in my opinion, tries to kind of referee each party doing this at the same time. About half the people I work with have come from this background, and they all report the same thing, that it generally doesn't work. What it does is it kind of gets them to back away from maybe being DEFCON 1 to maybe DEFCON 5, but both parties haven't really resolved the feeling that the other person is victimizing them. And one of the reasons they get stuck is because there tends to be this pervasive view in culture today from the man and the woman that I'll go when she goes. And brother, if you're doing this, this does not work. I call this the 50-50 approach, where a man says, I'll let go of my victimization when you let go of yours. And again, they're just stuck there. It's a gridlock and it doesn't work. So if you want to get out of this stage of marriage, you must go first, brother. You've got to let that story go, be patient, and give her the opportunity to see that you have released her from all of the causality of your emotional pain. When you do, experience tells me, most of the time, your relationship will move forward into a great and profound experience that is probably beyond more than you can imagine. Now, I've just told you a lot of information, and I realize it's complex information. You might have a lot of questions, and there's a lot more that I just can't say in a 10 or 12 minute video. So what I want to invite you to do, if you're stuck in this mutual contempt, mutual victimization, Cold War season of your marriage, I want you just to reach out to me, right? You can go to svenmasterson.com if you like, go up to the menus, you'll find a form that you can fill out where you can connect with me for a free complimentary session where we'll talk about your Cold War season. We'll work through what's going on in your life. I won't try to sell you anything. I won't try to tell you can buy my book. Nothing. I'm just going to talk to you about what's going on in your life, give you some ideas, tools, concepts, etc. to try and send you on your way. That's one way you can do that. The other is you can just email me, it's Sven at svenmasterson.com, or go to my website and choose to look at what my free course, The Emotionally Resilient Man, is. This is a tool that I developed to help men do the work to get out of this victimized thinking so that they can release their partner from being that victim. No matter what you do, I just invite you to contact me, to connect with me, and see how I can help you get out of this stage and into the next. Thanks for watching this video. I hope to talk to you sometime face-to-face over Zoom or whatnot. Until then, keep going, keep working to get out of this stage, and hang in there. I'll talk to you soon.